All right, for review purposes, I'm going to skip over kind of a lot of supply and demand stuff and move to kind of government involvement with supply and demand curve and how that can kind of get involved and can kind of constrict the equilibrium price and quantity. So I'll start off with talking about ceilings and floors. We'll move on to a quota, then the last one, probably the toughest one, we'll be talking about tariff. So I'll try to be as quick as I can and be sure to label where people will be producing at, people will be consuming at, and producer surplus and consumer surplus for all four of these. So to get started, sometimes the government wants to get involved if the equilibrium price or quantity is too high or too low. So for ceilings now, for an effective or a binding price ceiling, it has to go below the equilibrium point. That is PC for our price ceiling. The reason it goes below, I know it's kind of weird, why is ceiling going below? Ceiling going below because the point of the ceiling is that nothing can go up above the ceiling. It's kind of a stopping point. So we know about the forces of the price system. At a point like this, at a price ceiling level, the quantity demanded is more than the quantity supplied. So using our price system, we know that suppliers should charge more money and we'll find an equilibrium point. But the price ceiling is limiting that. So we should know that at equilibrium point, I'll do PE and QE. This triangle up here is consumer surplus. Consumers are happy these amount of consumers are happy with this price level, the quantity and then that price. And then the producer surplus is this triangle down here without the price ceiling involved. But now with the price ceiling, it's a little bit different. The reason sometimes they want to do a price ceiling is because they want to try to increase consumer surplus. So for example, I've seen price ceilings in countries where the government feels that food prices are too high. They enact a price ceiling to help out the consumers and citizens to make more affordable food for the people. All a good thing, but by putting a price ceiling down here, it gives less incentives for suppliers to supply their food to market. So the quantity that they'll be producing at, we'll do QS here, that's the quantity, it's a less amount that they'd be willing to produce. So now we have this other term now. This weird trapezoid is our consumer surplus. Producer surplus is this triangle. Now this triangle here is what's called dead weight loss. That is missed opportunities for trade and for possible more, I guess, total overall surplus. So this is dead weight loss. Economists don't really like dead weight loss. They see it as what could have been, what's a possibility if the price ceiling was not enacted. So that's price ceiling. Now price floor, let me erase some of these things real quick, hope you can still see them. Effective price floor, kind of a little bit opposite. Price floor would go above the equilibrium point. Do PF, if you can see that bright green. Now PF, price floor, they want to raise the price up. So a good example of this is minimum wage. Supply and demand is a little bit different because it's in the resource market, but supply of labor and the demand for labor by firms. By creating more of a minimum wage, the goal is to then help out people who are looking for work. Hey, you want work? Well, they'll force you to get paid more for working. What actually ends up happening is the amount demanded at that higher level, what businesses are willing to hire, is now going to vastly decrease because of that price floor that's being put in. So prices can't get below that amount. It's going to be kind of stuck at that level. So that kind of creates what's known as a surplus. There is more quantity supplied than quantity demanded. That is known as a surplus. So that is price floor. Now quota. Quota is a little bit different than price ceiling and price floor. Price ceiling and price floor is limiting the amount based upon price and restricting the market because of price, but a quota is something entirely different. It is limiting the market based upon the amount that can be produced. So sometimes regulations mean this. The common example is taxis in New York City. If we'd be able to get to the equilibrium point, the streets would be flooded with taxis would be really inefficient. So sometimes that's why the government says you need to have a specific medallion, a taxi medallion, to operate a taxi in New York City. So at this level, this is where we'll be producing at, is way up here at a very much higher price level. Consumer surplus, this triangle. Producer surplus, this triangle. This in between is known as economic profit. So the taxi drivers could loan out their car to somebody else. Sometimes it's clumped together with producer surplus because they are selling for a higher wage up for a higher markup here now. And this triangle again is deadweight loss. So now we've talked about 3 of them. Now the most challenging one is probably talking about the tariff. Now for our review, we've already kind of talked about tariff in the sense of economic trade and international trade and finance. So we have our equilibrium price and our equilibrium quantity down here. Now what a tariff could possibly do is, here's our domestic supply and then our demand as well. Well, a country can import products if they wanted to. So the world price, I'll get a different color for that. Say world price is now on that green line. Now world price at a much lower level, it kind of hurts domestic producers. Domestic producers and domestic consumers, if they're acting by themselves, it was a closed economy, would be producing at this point. But because of these other countries trying to get in, the world price is much lower. So it's actually kind of hurting domestic producers. Their producer surplus should be this full triangle, but now it's only this tiny triangle. The amount consumers are buying at is way out here. So it's domestic suppliers, domestic consumers, and now consumers are able to meet the full demand at this lower price. This amount is being produced within the country. This amount is being imported from other countries. So now consumers are happy, producers are not so happy. So what the government could do is they can impose a tariff on any sort of product that's being imported. So a tariff just means kind of like a tax on imported products. So what this tariff could do, it would raise up the world price a little bit higher. I'll use purple here. To a slightly higher level. World price 2. Now effectively by doing this, the goal was to increase producer surplus. And we did that. Producer surplus was this small triangle. Now it's a slightly bigger triangle for producer surplus. Consumer surplus has gotten a little bit smaller. Went from going from way out here to being this edge of the triangle. But now what about all this other stuff? This area used to be consumer surplus, but now it's producer surplus. But now this area, right in here, this is revenue from the tariff. So that's how much money the government has made from the tariff. These 2 triangles on the outside of this box, that is our deadweight loss. It's deadweight loss because it's the missed opportunity for more trade and more potential for trade to be happening in the market. So that's pretty much the tariff, what it all looks like, and some reasoning and rationale why governments want to impose either tariff or a quota, price ceiling, price floor, identify producer and consumer surplus, and that's pretty much it.